1990 and 2014, the Good Office process was led by 3 personal representatives appointed by successive Secretaries General. In September 2015, during the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly, the Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, held a meeting with the heads of state of Guyana and Venezuela. Thereafter, on 12 November 2015, the Secretary General issued a document entitled The Way Forward, in which he informed the parties that, I quote, if a practical solution to the controversy were not found before the end of his tenure, he intended to initiate the process to obtain a final and binding decision from the International Court of Justice, end of quote. In his statement of 16 December 2016, the Secretary General stated that he had decided to continue for a further year the Good Office's process to be led by a new personal representative with a strengthened mandate of mediation. After taking office on 1 January 2017, the new Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, continued the Good Office's process for a final year, in conformity with his predecessor's decision. In letters dated 30 January 2018 to both parties, the Secretary General stated that he had carefully analyzed the developments in the Good Office's process during the course of 2017 and concluded that, I quote, significant progress not having been made toward arriving at a full agreement for the solution of the controversy, he had chosen the International Court of Justice as the means to be used for its solution. On 20 March 2018, Guyana filed its application in the registry of the court. The court then turned to the question of the admissibility of Venezuela's preliminary objection, addressing Guyana's argument that the objection concerns the exercise of the court's jurisdiction and should be rejected as inadmissible because it is jurisdictional in nature and is not an objection to admissibility. Guyana contends that in accordance with Article 79 bis of the Rules of Court, Venezuela is no longer entitled to raise a preliminary objection which in substance concerns questions of jurisdiction that the court raised proprio motu and already decided in a binding judgment. Guyana argues that Venezuela's preliminary objection is in any event time-barred because Venezuela could and should have raised its objection within the time limit fixed by the court's order of 19 June 2018. The court recalls that it has, on a number of occasions, considered whether a state that is not a party to the proceedings before it should be deemed an indispensable third party without the consent of which the court cannot adjudicate. In the operative paragraph of its judgment in the case concerning monetary gold removed from Rome in 1943, the court found that, I quote, the jurisdiction conferred upon it by the common agreement of France, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, and Italy does not, in the absence of the consent of Albania, authorize it to adjudicate upon the first submission in the application of the Italian government, end of quote. Similarly, in the case concerning East Timor, Portugal versus Australia, the court concluded that, I quote, it cannot, in this case, exercise the jurisdiction it has by virtue of the declarations made by the parties under Article 36, paragraph 2 of its statute, because in order to decide the claims of Portugal, it would have to rule as a prerequisite on the lawfulness of Indonesia's conduct in the absence of that state's consent, end of quote. When rejecting an objection that a third state is an indispensable party without the consent of which the court cannot adjudicate in a given case, the court has proceeded on the basis that the objection concerning the exercise of jurisdiction rather than the existence of jurisdiction. For example, in the case concerning certain phosphate in Nauru, Australia, the court concluded that the court could decline to exercise its jurisdiction on the basis of the principle referred to as monetary gold. The aforementioned jurisprudence is thus premised on a distinction between two different concepts. On the one hand, the exercise of the court's jurisdiction, and on the other, the existence of its jurisdiction. Only an objection concerning the existence of a court's jurisdiction can be characterized as an objection to jurisdiction. The court concludes that Venezuela's objection on the basis of the monetary gold principle is an objection to the exercise of the court's jurisdiction and thus does not constitute an objection to jurisdiction. The court turns next to the principle of res judicata, which is reflected in Articles 59 and 60 of the Statute of the Court. As the Court has stated, that principle establishes the finality of the decision adopted in a particular case. The force of res judicata attaches not only to a judgment on the merits, but also to a judgment determining the court's jurisdiction, such as the court's 2020 judgment. Specifically, the operative part of a judgment of the court possesses the force of res judicata. In order to determine what has been decided with the force of res judicata, it is also necessary to ascertain the content of the decision, the finality of which is guaranteed, and it may be necessary to determine the meaning of the operative clause by reference to the reasoning set out in the judgment in question. If a matter has not in fact been determined expressly or by necessary implication, then no force of res judicata attaches to it. The Court finds that the operative paragraph of the 2020 judgment and the reasoning underlying it only address questions concerning the existence of the court's jurisdiction. Moreover, that judgment does not address, even implicitly, the issue of the exercise of jurisdiction by the court. In particular, the question whether the United States is an indispensable the question whether the United Kingdom is an indispensable third party without the consent of which the court could not exercise its jurisdiction was not determined by necessary implication in the 2020 judgment. It follows that the force of res judicata attaching to the 2020 judgment extends only to the question of the existence of the court's jurisdiction and does not bar the admissibility of Venezuela's preliminary objection. The Court also notes that by using the phrases "in the matter of jurisdiction" and "the question of jurisdiction of the court" in its order of 19 June 2018, it was referring only to the existence and not to the exercise of jurisdiction. As to Guyana's argument that Venezuela's preliminary objection is time-barred, the Court states that its order of 19 June 2018 only concerned pleadings in respect of the question of the existence of the court's jurisdiction. In light of the Court's aforementioned finding that Venezuela's preliminary objection is not an objection to the court's jurisdiction, the time limits that the Court set out in the order of 19 June 2018 do not apply to pleadings with respect to such objection. Venezuela thus remained entitled to raise that objection within the time limit set out by Article 79 bis, paragraph 1 of the Rules of Court. For these reasons, the Court concludes that Venezuela's preliminary objection is admissible. The Court then proceeds to the examination of this preliminary objection. The Court recalls that in its preliminary objection, Venezuela submits that the United Kingdom is an indispensable third party to the proceedings, and that the Court cannot decide the question of the validity of the 1899 award in the United Kingdom's absence. Venezuela argues that a judgment of the Court on the merits in this case would necessarily involve, as a prerequisite, an evaluation of the lawfulness of certain fraudulent conduct allegedly attributable to the United Kingdom in respect of the 1899 award. The Court recalls that Venezuela, invoking the monetary gold principle, maintains that the legal interests of the United Kingdom would be the very subject matter of the Court's decision in the present case. Nonetheless, the Court notes that the two parties to these proceedings, as well as the United Kingdom, are parties to the Geneva Agreement on which the Court's jurisdiction is based. It is therefore appropriate for the Court to consider the legal implications of the United Kingdom being a party to the Geneva Agreement, which calls for an interpretation of the relevant provisions of the agreement. To interpret the Geneva Agreement, the Court will apply the rules of treaty interpretation to be found in Articles 31 to 33 of the Vienna Convention. Although that convention is not in force between the parties and is not in any event applicable to instruments concluded before it entered into force, such as the Geneva Agreement, it is well established that those articles reflect rules of customary international law. In accordance with the rule of interpretation enshrined in Article 31, paragraph 1 of the Vienna Convention, a treaty must be interpreted in good faith in accordance with the ordinary meaning to be given to the terms of the treaty in their context and in light of its object and purpose. These elements of interpretation are to be considered as a whole. The Court notes that the emphasis placed by the parties to the Geneva Agreement on British Guyana becoming independent is an important part of the context for purposes of interpreting Article 4 of the agreement. Indeed, its preamble makes clear that the United Kingdom participated in the elaboration of the agreement in consultation with the government of British Guyana. The preamble further indicates that in elaborating the agreement, the parties took into account the then forthcoming independence of British Guyana. The court also observes that references to Guyana in paragraphs 1 and 2 of Article 4 presuppose the attainment of independence by British Guyana. This independence was attained on 26 May 1966, some 3 months after the conclusion of the agreement. On that date, Guyana became a party to the Geneva Agreement in accordance with Article 8 thereof. The court turns to Articles 1 and 2 of the Geneva Agreement, which address the initial stage of the process for the settlement of the dispute between the parties and identify the role of Venezuela and British Guyana in the establishment of a mixed commission to seek a practical settlement for the controversy between Venezuela and the United Kingdom. The court observes that while Article 1 of the agreement describes the dispute as one existing between the United Kingdom and Venezuela, Article 2 provides no role for the United Kingdom in the initial stage of the dispute settlement process. Rather, it places the responsibility for appointment of the representatives to the mixed commission on British Guyana and Venezuela. The court notes that the reference to British Guyana contained in Article 2, which can be distinguished from references to the United Kingdom contained elsewhere in the treaty, and particularly in Article 1, supports the interpretation that the parties to the Geneva Agreement intended for Venezuela and British Guyana to have the sole role in the settlement of the dispute through the mechanism of the mixed commission. It is noteworthy that such an understanding was arrived at, notwithstanding that British Guyana was a colony which had not yet attained independence and was not yet a party to the treaty. The court notes that neither paragraph 1 nor paragraph 2 of Article 4 of the Geneva Agreement contains any reference to the United Kingdom. These provisions, which set out the final stages of the process for the settlement of the dispute, refer only to the government of Guyana and the government of Venezuela, and place upon them the responsibility to choose a means of peaceful settlement provided in Article 33 of the Charter of the United Nations, or failing agreement on such means, the responsibility to refer the decision on the means to an appropriate international organization upon which they both agree. Failing agreement on that point, the parties would refer the matter to the Secretary General of the United Nations, who would choose one of the means of settlement provided in Article 33 of the Charter of the United Nations. In the view of the court, this examination of the relevant provisions of the Geneva Agreement, in particular the detailed provisions of Article 4, shows the importance that the parties to the agreement attach to the conclusive resolution of the dispute. In that regard, the court recalls that in its 2020 judgment, it determined that the object and purpose of the agreement is to ensure a definitive resolution of the controversy between the parties. Interpreting paragraphs 1 and 2 of Article 4 in accordance with the ordinary meaning to be given to the terms in their context, and in light of the agreement's object and purpose, the court concludes that the Geneva Agreement specifies particular roles for Guyana and Venezuela, and that its provisions, including Article 8, do not provide a role for the United Kingdom in choosing or in participating in the means of settlement of the dispute pursuant to Article 4. Therefore, the court considers that the scheme established by Articles 2 and 4 of the Geneva Agreement reflects a common understanding of all parties to that agreement that the controversy which existed between the United Kingdom and Venezuela on 17 February 1966 would be settled by Guyana and Venezuela through one of the dispute settlement procedures envisaged in the agreement. The court further notes that when the United Kingdom accepted through the Geneva Agreement the scheme for the settlement of the dispute between Guyana and Venezuela without its involvement, it was aware that such settlement could involve the examination of certain allegations by Venezuela of wrongdoing by the authorities of the United Kingdom at the time of the disputed arbitration. In that respect, the court recalls that on 14 February 1962, Venezuela, through its permanent representative to the United Nations, informed the Secretary General that it considered there to be a dispute between the United Kingdom and itself concerning the demarcation of the frontier between Venezuela and British Guyana. In its letter to the Secretary General, Venezuela stated that, I quote, "The award was the result of a political transaction carried out behind Venezuela's back and sacrificing its legitimate rights. The frontier was demarcated arbitrarily, and no account was taken of the specific rules of the arbitral agreement or of the relevant principles of international law." End of quote. Venezuela reiterated its position in a statement before the Fourth Committee of the United Nations General Assembly, delivered shortly thereafter on 22 February 1962. In a statement to the Fourth Committee of the United Nations General Assembly delivered on 12 November 1962, the Minister for External Relations of Venezuela said that the 1899 award arose in circumstances which were clearly prejudicial to the rights of Venezuela. He further added that, I quote, "There was no arbitral award, properly speaking. There was a settlement. There was a political compromise. And by means of this decision, the three judges who held a majority disposed of Venezuelan territory, for the two British judges were not acting as judges. They were acting as government representatives, as advocates, rather than as judges." End of quote. In 13 November 1962, the government of the United Kingdom responded to Venezuela's statement at the Fourth Committee of the General Assembly. The United Kingdom emphatically rejected what it qualified as the most serious allegation of the Venezuelan Minister of External Relations, that the members of the arbitral tribunal which rendered the award in 1899, I quote, "came to their decision without reference to the rules of international law and to the other rules which the tribunal under the terms of the treaty ought to have applied." End of quote. The United Kingdom also rejected the allegations that the 1899 award was an improper compromise or a diplomatic compromise, and stated that it could not agree that there could be any dispute over the question settled by the award. In the same statement, the United Kingdom offered to discuss with Venezuela through diplomatic channels arrangements for tripartite examination of the documentary material relevant to the validity of the 1899 award. Following the tripartite examination, on 9 and 10 December 1965, the foreign ministers of the United Kingdom and Venezuela and the Prime Minister of British Guyana met in London to discuss a settlement of the dispute. As the court noted in its 2020 judgment, in the discussion held on 9 and 10 December 1965, the United Kingdom and British Guyana rejected the Venezuelan proposal that the only solution to the frontier dispute lay in the return of the disputed territory to Venezuela, on the basis that it implied that the 1899 award was null and void and that there was no justification for that allegation. After the failure of these talks, the United Kingdom participated in the negotiation and conclusion of the Geneva Agreement. The court is of the view that the United Kingdom was aware of the scope of the dispute concerning the validity of the 1899 award, which included allegations of its wrongdoing and recourse to unlawful procedures, but nonetheless accepted the scheme set out in Article 4, whereby Guyana and Venezuela could submit the dispute to one of the means of settlement set out in Article 33 of the Charter of the United Nations without the involvement of the United Kingdom. The court considers that the ordinary meaning of the terms of Article 4, read in their context and in light of the object and purpose of the Geneva Agreement, as well as the circumstances surrounding its adoption, support this conclusion. The court refers next to Article 31, paragraph 3 of the Vienna Convention, which provides that in the interpretation of a treaty, there shall be taken into account, together with the context, any subsequent practice in the application of the treaty which establishes the agreement of the parties regarding its interpretation. Accordingly, the court examines the subsequent practice of the parties to the Geneva Agreement to ascertain whether it establishes their agreement on the lack of involvement of the United Kingdom in the settlement of the dispute between Guyana and Venezuela. The court observes that the United Kingdom did not seek to participate in the aforementioned mixed commission procedure, nor did Venezuela and Guyana request the United Kingdom's participation. Venezuela's exclusive engagement with the government of Guyana at the mixed commission indicates that there was a common understanding among the parties that Article 2 did not provide a role for the United Kingdom in the dispute settlement process. The court further notes that Venezuela engaged exclusively with the government of Guyana when implementing Article 4 of the Geneva Agreement. In respect of the good offices process conducted by the Secretary General of the United Nations, again, the court observes that the United Kingdom did not seek to participate in the procedure set out in Article 4 to resolve the dispute, nor did the parties request such participation. Venezuela's exclusive engagement with the government of Guyana during the good offices process indicates that there was agreement among the parties that the United Kingdom had no role in the dispute settlement process. Accordingly, the practice of the parties to the Geneva Agreement further demonstrates their agreement that the dispute could be settled without the involvement of the United Kingdom. In light of the foregoing, the court concludes that by virtue of being a party to the Geneva Agreement, the United Kingdom accepted that the dispute between Guyana and Venezuela could be settled by one of the means set out in Article 33 of the Charter of the United Nations, and that it would have no role in that procedure. Under these circumstances, the court considers that the monetary gold principle does not come into play in this case. It follows that if the court, in its judgment on the merits, were called to pronounce on certain conduct attributable to the United Kingdom, which cannot be determined at present, this would not preclude the court from exercising its jurisdiction, which is based on the application of the Geneva Agreement. The preliminary objection raised by Venezuela must therefore be rejected. I shall now read out the operative part of the judgment. For these reasons, the court, 1, unanimously finds that the preliminary objection raised by the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela is admissible. 2, by 14 votes to 1, rejects the preliminary objection raised by the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. In favor, President Donahue, Vice President Gevorgyan, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Yusuf, Shway, Sabatinde, Bandari, Robinson, Salam, Iwasawa, Nolte, Judge Ad hoc Wolfram. Against, Judge Ad hoc Couvreur. 3, by 14 votes to 1, finds that it can adjudicate upon the merits of the claims of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, insofar as they fall within the scope of paragraph 138, subparagraph 1 of the judgment of 18 December 2020. In favor, President Donahue, Vice President Gevorgyan, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Yusuf, Shway, Sabatinde, Bandari, Robinson, Salam, Iwasawa, Nolte. Judge Ad hoc Wolfram. Against, Judge Ad hoc Couvreur. I now call upon the registrar to read the operative part of the judgment in French.
Par ces motifs, la Cour, à l'unanimité, dit que l'exception préliminaire soulevée par la République bolivarienne du Venezuela est recevable. 2, par 14 voix contre 1, rejette l'exception préliminaire soulevée par la République bolivarienne du Venezuela pour Madame Donoghue, présidente, Monsieur Gevorgyan, vice-président, Messieurs Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Youssouf, Mesdames Choué, Sebutinde, Messieurs Bandari, Robinson, Salam, Iwasawa, Nolte, juge, Monsieur Wolfram, juge ad hoc, contre Monsieur Couvreur, juge ad hoc. 3, par 14 voix contre 1, dit qu'elle peut statuer sur le fond des demandes de la République coopérative du Guyana dans la mesure où celle-ci entre dans le champ du point 1 du paragraphe 138 de l'arrêt du 18 décembre 2020. Pour Madame Donoghue, présidente, Monsieur Gevorgyan, vice-président, Messieurs Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Youssouf, Mesdames Choué, Sebutinde, Messieurs Bandari, Robinson, Salam, Iwasawa, Nolte, juge, Monsieur Wolfram, juge ad hoc. Contre, Monsieur Couvreur, juge ad hoc.
Judge Bandari appends a declaration to the judgment of the court. Judge Robinson appends a separate opinion to the judgment of the court. Judge Iwasawa appends a declaration to the judgment of the court. Judge Ad hoc Wolfram appends a declaration to the judgment of the court. Judge Ad hoc Couvreur appends a partially separate and partially dissenting opinion to the judgment of the court. The text of the judgment is available from today in TypeScript. It will also be available shortly on the court's website. The printed text will be available in the near future. As the court has no other business before it, I declare the sitting closed.
We are a peaceful people. Struggle is with struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karage, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Big mistake. Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, daytime or night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karage, not a blade of grass. And we ain't moving nowhere. We are a peaceful people. Struggle is with struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karage, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Big mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up the river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one rice, not a blade of grass. We love.
All right. Hey, guess what's happening? Good morning to you. You just heard that ruling there. And you just heard that ruling there. Venezuela has lost. And while a lot of us want to be patriotic, and a lot of us are patriotic, some are pretending that they are patriotic while they are selling Guyana out. Let us not forget, the PPP should not be jumping to celebrate at all, because they were against this. They criticized what the coalition government was doing in terms of having a sensible approach in taking this to The Hague so that the international court can deal with this. They criticized the APNU. They criticized the APNU for wasting monies and all manner of things. And that is how hypocritical these ignoramus individuals are, Jack Deere, etc. In 2015, let us not forget, and we want to take you all the way back to 2015. Let us take you all the way back to 2015. There was an article in almost all of the newspapers in Guyana. October 24th, this is the Chronicle, 2015, and it says here, former President Barrett Jackdale, now opposition leader, on Friday said the idea of negotiating a settlement with Venezuela, mind you, Jackdale is the one that wanted to negotiate, give a piece of Guyana, a piece of Guyana's territory to Venezuela. This is no propaganda, and no leader, however idiotic that person is, would be so brazen enough to want to give a piece of your territory, a piece of Guyana, our territory, to another country. Now, I am saying this so that we can get into the mindset of this individual. This guy should have been handcuffed. This guy, Jack Dale, should have been shackled, but not one shackle, but about 5 shackles, and dragged before the court with not one treason charge, but several treason charges, sedition charges, everything. Throw the book at him. Look at this guy. I know some of his supporters might say, Inaminam, right? Good morning to you guys. Some of his supporters would say, Inaminam, right? In other words, he didn't mean it. He was just trying to trick Ben. Some of the supporters may say that. But here's a man. He has absolutely no... I'm looking at some of your comments. I know some of you might be seeing this for the first time. This is shocking that someone like Jack Deere, who sat there as president of the country once, is saying to Venezuela that they can have a piece of Guyana's territory. Look, I don't want to be like others who share the damn link, man. Share the damn link. I wouldn't do that. I'm a nice guy, right? You guys know that. But can you believe this? And, good morning. Good morning to you guys. Look, Jack Deere considered slight concession of Guyana's river territory to Venezuela. Now, I'm looking for some of the trenchies to because they love to say that Ben Shab them a spread propaganda. Them by not attack. Anyway, sorry, I almost tooth almost fell out. Let me just stick it. Them by a lie. All manner of things they can say. Look at this. Jack Deere, this was 2015. Jack Deere considered slight concession of Guyana's river territory to Venezuela. This is not propaganda. You guys see where this is? This banner, as we would say in Guyana, this banner should be, I don't know, he should be lost away in prison, if you ask me. He is a liability to Guyana. He is, as they would say, crossbuns coming in, but you spell the crossbuns differently. This madman, Barrett Jack Deere, should have no access to anything concerning Guyana. But now they have access to the billions of dollars of oil wealth, right? In the hands of a man who is said to be corrupt, who is said to be notorious. Look at this. I know we have reasons to celebrate. Sorry, I'm sounding a bit like Anil Nandalal, but we have reasons to celebrate. Somebody call Nandalal and tell him the word is not celebrate, it's celebrate. Thank you. Right? Look at this. Now, the coalition wasn't perfect, but today's victory. Today's victory is a victory for Guyana. And while it is a victory for Guyana, we got to give the previous administration, the coalition, we got to give them kudos for their wisdom in ensuring that this matter, because President Granger could have buckled. Sorry, I'm using the word, and my wardrobe guys didn't fix me properly this morning. But let me say this: Granger, they could have buckled under pressure with this, and oh no, but they said they are going to spend your taxpayers' money, not to give it to friends and cronies, waste of time contracts to build fire station and all these different things. No, they've decided that they're going to spend the money, your tax dollars, and what is right. And I am happy today with this victory, a sense of pride and joy. Here it is that you have another country claiming our territory, claiming a big piece, not a little piece they're trying to grab, a big piece. They want to hold on a big piece and run away with it. Guyana's territory, our country. And then you have someone like Jack Deere is saying to Venezuela that it is okay. You can take a piece. I don't want to, it's early in the morning as to question why Jack Deere is always willing to give somebody a piece of Guyana. Always willing to give somebody a piece of Guyana. Always willing to bend over and destroy Guyana and give up a piece. I don't know, but this guy should have been charged with treason. Now you're going to see on the headlines, they're going to say, oh, their supporters, they're going to try to brainwash some of their supporters. But here's where we suspect that this deal, between Chavez, look, it says here, former President Barrett Jack Deere and the late former president of Venezuela, should have been too late, right? The late, right? Both of them. Hugo Chavez, Jack Deere has admitted to offering to cede part of Guyana's territory to Venezuela in order to help settle. This is how silly, this is how dotish this man Jack Deere is. And some of you might be, oh, Jack Deere is a smart politician. Smart politician, where? We are yet to see anything that he has done that is beneficial to Guyana. All of the things that we have seen thus far is beneficial to Jack Deere and his cronies. Jack Deere and his cronies. That is what we're seeing. Look at Pradoville 1, look at Pradoville 2, look at all the questionable folks who are getting contracts, hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts. Look at those things. This guy's only legacy is the destruction of Guyana. That is what it's about. Well, I hope mind you, and I want you guys to see my face. Please, Lemon, can you have them see my face, please? Now, I want you guys to hear this part, and I want you guys to see my face. I hope that the coalition will have what is called a swift reaction to this here. This is beneficial, and not just swift reaction for the sake of just talking nonsense. Have people who understand the territorial history to make a proper presentation, a rapid response that makes sense by someone who understands the issues. That's all I wish to say. Even if they're to have a panel discussion, go right ahead, have a panel discussion with folks who understand the issue at hand. That's all. And I hope that's all I wish to say on the matter, right? That's all I wish to say on the matter. But I'm not going anywhere as yet. I still have a few more minutes with you guys. Let's see what some of you are saying. One, Anthony. One. Everybody name one now. I'm surprised that Irfan Ali didn't spell one like this. Juan. One Guyana. Well, one Anthony he has every right. Just like every other guy needs to go around and say one Guyana. Juan. Again, I'm surprised that Irfan didn't spell it in that manner. I'm just surprised that Irfan didn't spell it in that manner. So here is what one Anthony is saying. Ultimately, Guyana prevailed. Of course, Guyana prevailed. Guyana had a smart government in place after 2 decades of destruction. It's too bad they're out of office. Again, they weren't perfect, but they were on the track of ensuring that they repaired Guyana. Mistakes were made, yes, but they were on the right track. Albeit they had some Judases and some crosses and all these manner of things, unpatriotic individuals, corrupt individuals within. They had a few of those, right? And we saw what happened in 2018 when one of those acrobatic character decided to do his acrobats. Now, let us get to one Anthony's position. Guyana prevailed, yes. Every Guyanese won, yes, except Jack Deo and the PPP. Except Jack Deo and Irfan Ali and these guys. They didn't win. They didn't want to win one. But all patriotic Guyanese have won, thanks to the coalition. Thanks. It's not the coalition was brave enough to say, to hell with you, Venezuela. Let's take this thing to the court. And the coalition spent those lawyers are not being paid just a couple thousand Guyana dollars, you know. And I must admit, they worth Sir Street at Ramphal, they're worth their money. Street at Ramphal, I believe, is getting like about, don't panic, but he's getting about $1 million per year for this case. $1 million. I don't know how much Carl Greenwich and those other guys are getting, but look, it's money worth. I would prefer to see that our tax-paying dollars go in the direction with things that make sense and things that are beneficial toward the entire country. Not a handful of corrupt bastards in Guyana that Jack Deo and Irfan are just giving away taxpayers' money to their friends and cronies. No. Money's well spent. What is it? $18 million? The PPP was bitching about. That's what they were doing. They were crying like little, well, not just little girls cry, right? But they were crying and whining with all of their corruption and their crocodile tears. But look what has happened now. Look at what has happened now. I'm not giving the PPP any opportunity to celebrate here. They're not, Anil and them are not going to celebrate here. I'm not giving them that opportunity to celebrate because look, until and unless they condemn Jack Deo for this here, because Jack Deo was prepared to sell out Guyana, sell out a big portion of Guyana to Venezuela. That is what Jack Deere was prepared to do. I don't know if Sue was his middleman. I don't know. But that is what Jack Deere was prepared to do. And Jack Deere and the PPP, they get no kudos for today's decision, none whatsoever. Today's decision was just a continuation of what David Granger's administration left for them to do. And they needed these guys. They couldn't fire these guys. They needed them. Who were they going to put? You think Anil is a legal giant? I may have some issues with Sridhar, you know, and Carl Greenidge is there as well. And these guys have decades of experience. Decades of experience. Who are they going to put? Anil and Sanjeev Datta in? Those two guys they were going to put, and Ramdani. Can you just imagine these guys speaking at the World Court, the International Court? They can probably speak, but to defend Jack Deere and Irfan as defendants when they're in the dock, or maybe they themselves might end up in the dock. Who knows? Based on how we see Guyana going right now. All right? Based on how the country is going right now. Again, congratulations. Congratulations. Somebody's asking me what has now become of Carl's job. I don't know what has become of Carl's job. The matter is not over. It's just not over yet, Miss Glenn Haywood. Good morning to you. It's just not yet over. Miss Vera is saying, hi Vera, how are you? Is saying that we can't compare apples with grapes. That's true. We can't compare apples with grapes, right? But again, all I'm saying is we should be celebrating this here. We patriotic ones, you guys don't allow Jack Deere them to take away this victory. Don't allow them. They have nothing to do with it. If they can't even, Anil, have you seen Anil, how the Caribbean Court of Justice guys messed him up? Made him look like a little boy in his supposed legal arguments. And just imagine them going to the World Court. First of all, the World Court justices wouldn't even understand what they are saying. That's a fact. You know, it's like he walked with a old trunk in his mouth, pretending to have big words. You know, what Baby Can is saying. Hi, baby. Good morning. Baby Can is saying, I wonder how much drug deal was offered by Venezuela to give away our land. Good question. Good question. I see somebody jump up here. Guyanese don't make joke, you know. They don't stick to a particular. Now the Ghana and asking Carl G, would you be competing for PNC leader? Oh, Father. Now we can't tilt to asking Carl Greenidge if he competing for leadership. You know, when you compete for leadership, I want to see active people, man. I want to see people there on the ground. But now you're asking the question, man. Let me focus. Daniel with no picture, with no nothing. Let me focus. Let me focus. Let me focus. Naomi, thanks for putting him in his place. And I am very uncomfortable with people with just a name and no photograph. I'm very uncomfortable because I don't know. It could be Kwame, it could be Jack Deere, it could be one of the. I don't know. But just a dry, it's like, you know, you're eating at your dinner table and somebody comes up with a weird topic that doesn't make sense at the moment. Anyways, as we say, let me stay on track, right? Let us stay on track. And Bibi has a point. And to Bibi's point is, she is saying here, I wonder how much drug deal was offered, meaning Jack Deere, drug deals, same thing, probably, was offered by Venezuela to give away our land. Exactly, Bibi. This guy, if we want to address him as such, was willing to bend over backward and give up a big piece, a big piece of Guyana, a big piece of Guyana's territory to Venezuela. That is what Jack Dale did. That is what he attempted to do. He said to Venezuela, come in and take a piece. Come in and take a piece of Venezuela, of Guyana. He said to Venezuela, you see, he was hugging Chavez. He and this sort of hugging. And it could have been right there and then that while he embraced closely the former and the late president of Venezuela, Chavez, you see, he's pulling Chavez closer to him, and he's saying to Chavez, take a piece of Venezuela. Are these folks that we should trust? Do you think these people should be trusted? Jack Dale and the Irfan Alis? No. They should never be trusted. Never, never be trusted. Yeah. So we're actually it's funny, but it's not funny, because at the end of the day, it is the truth. And I am not going to allow Jack Dale or any one of them to run away and claim victory here at all. Victory goes directly, again, I wish to reiterate, directly at the doorsteps of the coalition government that was cheated out of office. The coalition government that was cheated out of office. But it doesn't mean that because the coalition was cheated out of office, it doesn't mean that it is the end of the world. In fact, it is not the end of the world, because the PPP is in serious trouble. So as Jack Dale holds on to Hugo Chavez, embraced him in a manner that leaves for interpretation, mind you, and decided to give up a piece, not of himself, which is another story, but a piece of Guyana. Just imagine for a moment what he might have been whispering in the ears of Hugo Chavez when he made that deal to give up a piece of Guyana. 30 seconds. You guys don't go anywhere, please. Stay right here.
Take a taste, take a taste. 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 Hey, hey. Waiting for the gate to open to get in the show. My plan was to be there early, but traffic was slow. Anyway, I reached the tent on time, but I had to join a line. If you see me crowd partner waiting to enjoy the soca line. Yeah. All around the corner, plenty people gathering. If you see the ladies partner, tight dress and posing. All them vendors selling food and drinks, everywhere music playing. Somewhere near a big doorway, you could hear a woman calling, take a taste, take a taste.
Take a taste, take a taste. And that is exactly what Jack Dale wanted Venezuela to do. That is what he was discussing with the late president of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez. Take a taste, take a taste. Take a taste of Guyana, take a taste of Venezuela. We are not going to accept that. If it was take a taste of whatever else Jack Dale had in mind there, then it's all his business. But not Guyana, not a piece of Guyana's territory, not at all. Yet this guy sits there as the vice president, quote unquote, vice president of the country. And you can just imagine what is happening with billions of oil money. Billions upon billions of oil money. Like I have said before, he has the opposite of the Midas touch. Everything he touches in Guyana is destroyed. It is a matter of corruption. That is what it's about. All right, if you're now joining us, Guyana, thanks to the coalition government, thanks to the David Granger's administration, thanks to those lawyers, thanks to the money that well spent on this case, things that the PPP were cursing and throwing tantrums about, thanks to the coalition, that we are where we are today. The wisdom of the coalition in taking this matter to the International Court. We've got to give the coalition praise for that. Not this guy. Now, what else we can discuss this morning? What else you guys want us to talk about? You want us to talk about a ring, right? Not that ring. An actual ring. We are hearing that a presidential guard is under close arrest at TSU headquarters. Close arrest means that he is there, but he cannot leave the compound at TSU for a ring that is missing. He allegedly stole a ring. So what they did, they dismissed the qualified presidential guards when they got in there, and they surrounded themselves with all sorts of inexperienced presidential guards, all sorts of individuals, and turned them into presidential guards. And so it is alleged now that a ring is missing. They're claiming that, quote unquote, First Lady had some ring somewhere, and the ring is missing. And now that that ring is missing, a presidential guard is placed under close arrest. I'm wondering whether that ring was found on the presidential guard, or they're just accusing the presidential guard of stealing the ring. I'm not sure. It says here that the presidential guard is under close arrest at TSU headquarters after he allegedly stole a ring belonging to the quote-unquote First Lady. I don't know, man. A ring. For some reason, unless this presidential guard admits that he stole the ring, or they caught him with the ring in his crotch or somewhere tucked away somewhere, I'm not going to believe the story. Unless they left the ring down there, assuming that there was a ring left anywhere, and this presidential guard decided to just thief this ring just like that, and they have full evidence that the presidential guard stole the ring. So I don't know. I'm not going to jump to blame the cop. It's not to say that they don't have cops with sticky fingers, right? Because they get some cops go in your home, they ransack, they pretend they're looking for whatever, and then they go on with other things. But now, if you're joining us, we're hearing that a presidential guard allegedly stole a ring, right? Allegedly stole a ring. What can we do to, we've got to, I don't know if a lot of you guys remember back in the days, there were some stuff in order to find out. Today we should, since it's the morning, we get a little bit of humor in this sort of silly stuff coming out of State House, coming out of Office of the President, coming out of Freedom House and so forth. A bunch of nonsense those people are doing to Guyana, they get something back home. I don't know if you guys know about it. By Peter, by Paul. And we see if this presidential guard stole the ring. Now, if this thing shakes, it means that the Presidential Guard stole the ring for truth. If it shakes, it means that the people at State House, Irfan people, are lying. So let's go quickly. It's early in the morning. We could have a little bit of humor, right? Baisan Peter, Baisan Paul. The Presidential Guard stole the ring. Baisan Peter, Baisan Paul. The Presidential Guard stole the ring. Wow. Nothing. It's not shaking. Right? It's not shaking. Let me see how many of you guys know what exactly that is about Baisan Peter, Baisan Paul. So it's not shaking. So it says that the Presidential Guard may not have stolen the ring. I don't know, but this is what. Now, Baisan Peter, Baisan Paul is the Irfan Ali and them and the First Lady line. Baisan Peter, Baisan Paul is the First Lady line. Sorry about that, guys. Stole a ring. All manner of dotishness. That Baisan Peter, Baisan Paul thing got me in trouble once, you know. Good morning to all you guys again. J.R. Crawford, Barbara Barrington, Penelope Hudson, all of you guys. Raul, good morning. Lizzie, Baisan Peter, Baisan Paul, right? Harmony Glenn, good morning to you. Jan Adams, all of you. Siudari, good morning. Good morning. Baisan, some of you know exactly what we're talking about, but that Baisan Peter, Baisan Paul stuff. But again, this morning's program is an impromptu something to basically just talk about this, talk about the case with Venezuela versus Guyana. And Guyana came up on top. Guyana okay, I'm hearing different versions of this story that the poor Presidential Guard got to take the rap now. Whose ring is it? Where the ring came from? Where the ring came? I don't want to get into all of that, man, because we might just got to go back to Baisan Peter, Baisan Paul. Is it Irfan's ring? Well, let's see. We can do it. We do Baisan Peter, Baisan Paul again. If the ring is Irfan Ali's ring as a gift to the First Lady, then this wouldn't shake. But if it came from somewhere else, then this whole thing, all right. Assuming that there was a ring and the ring was missing and so forth. All bunch of Nancy stories in Guyana, man. Seriously. But let's go again. Baisan Peter, Baisan Paul, the ring that the First Lady is talking about that's missing, did her husband give her as a present? Baisan Peter, Baisan Paul, did she get the ring from somewhere else? Come on, man, shake now. Shake now. Shake now. Good morning again. The opposition leader, Aubrey Norton, they have a press conference coming up at 11 o'clock. We will carry that press conference live right here. So you guys will have to keep my company. We will carry that press conference right here. Right here. We will carry that press conference right here. We want to hear what the opposition leader and whoever else, I hope he has some folks who can really speak on the matters next to him and not just there to sit and take up space. So we will carry that press conference right here on 107.1 FM. Let's go to this woman here now. Priya Manikchand. Priya Manikchand has responded to a story that basically I mentioned that Irfan Ali's mother is now playing a role on some new division that was created by Priya Manikchand at the Cyril Potter College of Education. Nobody in the public knew that this thing is happening. No one knew that there's this new position, and there are lots of conflict of interest. But I'm not going to get into that at the moment. I will be exposing that. But for now, I've decided to focus on the role that Irfan Ali's mother is playing at that agency. Just the role. It so happens now that Priya Manikchan has confirmed that yes, she has confirmed that yes, Irfan Ali's mother is now occupying a position at the Cyril Potter College of Education, and Priya Manikchan decided now to put on her not so widely viewed page at all. She says here, 2 Sundays ago, Benchkap said that Anil and former President Donald Ramotar and I were absent from the celebration of the presidents, Chetty and Janet Jagan. So what Priya is saying is that 2 Sundays ago, she said that 2 Sundays ago, sorry about that, guy, that 2 Sundays ago, that I said that she was not there, and Donald Ramotar wasn't there, and Anil wasn't there, and therefore she wanted to address that. She said, she came live and she said that she was there, Anil was there, and Donald Ramotar was also there. All right. But they were not given a space at the head table. They weren't given a space. Sorry about that. Some messages come. Yeah. And so they weren't given a space at the head table for nothing at all. They weren't given a space. The fact that, forget about Priya Manikchan not being at the head table. She doesn't deserve to be at any head table anyways. She doesn't deserve to be at any head table because she's basically a political orangutan. She seems to be a violent person. And we'll get to that shortly. Loves to throw tantrums, worse than a third grader. Far worse than a third grader. But we'll get to that shortly. So, going back to the text, sorry about that, guys. She says that she's trying to justify that the former president, Donald Ramotar, was there, but they were in the audience. They weren't. Imagine a former president, Donald Ramotar, wasn't given a space at the table. Imagine Donald Ramotar being the former general secretary of the PPP, wasn't given a space at the head table when they were there at Babujan. And that's all. That's all. She couldn't address that. But anyway, she went on now. And she said, nobody cares whether you were there or not, Priya, in the audience, which is where you should be in the audience, probably collecting ticket at the gate or probably paying out $40,000 for those people who were rounded up and forced, according to information, forced to go there. Now, she continues, and this is on her not so widely read nor watched page, but it was brought to my attention. Now she's saying that I was misinforming you, meaning the public, and I pointed that out by posting pictures of our glorious presence, their glorious presence in the audience, in the pit. In the pit, they weren't on balcony or in the house, they were in pit. And the point is, a former president was not given a space at the head table, and the former general secretary of the PPP. But they were in the audience. Glorious pictures. Give me a break, Priya. Care to abuse out and the dotishness somewhere else. Anyways, she continues. Today he makes, meaning Ben Shah, today he makes some other idiotic post about President Ali, her term, President Ali, appointing his mother at CPCE. He is equally wrong. Now she's saying that he is equally wrong. This is somebody who is y'all Minister of Education, you know. he is equally wrong. Anyways, y'all Minister of Education is saying, and he knows fully well it isn't true, which means he is deliberately trying. I got to pause for a moment. I don't knock people who drink alcohol, but I'm beginning to wonder whether Priya Manikchan was under the influence of maybe alcohol or something. I don't know whether she drinks or not, but she had to have been under the influence of something when she wrote this trash. Well, I'll continue. Sorry. I don't want to. She says, and he knows fully well it isn't true, which means he is deliberately trying to make a fool of you. That's what she's saying, that I am trying to make a fool of you guys. Meanwhile, she is continuing, and she has been for years, making a fool of herself. Now, let's continue. She's saying, Mistress Ali, referring to Irfan Ali's mother. Mistress Ali, according to her, Mistress Ali is solid educator, which was never the argument. All her life, well, but then again, she is an educator. But if she is an educator all her life, then what happened to Irfan? Did she raise him? Was he in her house? If she is an educator all her life and Irfan Ali turned out a big dodo head, well, I'm beginning to wonder what sort of educator then. But I don't want to stray from the issue. According to Priya, Mistress Ali is an educator all her life. But poor Irfan doesn't do her justice. Doesn't do his mother, who is supposed to be an educator all her life. He doesn't do her justice. Nothing at all. So, so she agreed to voluntarily contribute her service to making CPCE the best college in these parts. How could CPCE be the best college in these parts? What part are you talking about? The IDB and other agencies have put other countries and other institutions far ahead. Teachers are being properly paid and respected and all manner of things. So what exactly is Priya talking about? Propaganda, but coming from dotish Priya, of course, we're not surprised. So this is what she says. To help Irfan's mother is there and to help us make sure 100% of our teachers are trained or in training before 2025. Wait, is everything before 2025 now? So they hurrying up this thing. Come quick, y'all come. Let me train y'all. Quick. Train them quick. Right? But she's not addressing other real issues in the country. Everything is to address quick before 2025, according to this this tantrum thrower. So before 2025, something this country has never been able to achieve. Are you kidding me? Something this country has never been able to achieve? You've got to be kidding me, Priya. Little Priya, you've got to be kidding me. You were there once as the Minister of Education and brought the Ministry of Education down to the gutters. For 20-something years, the PPP was there and they brought the education sector down to the gutters, the schools, the conditions of the schools. There were no proper labs. There were no computer section or computer labs or nothing of that sort. Give us a goddamn break, Priya. You got to be kidding. Who do you think you're fooling? Or who can you fool? You made a mess when you were, and I really do mean a mess, when you were Minister of Social Security, I believe. A mess. And then they brought you over as Minister of Education. You continue to make a mess and to be an embarrassment to the teaching profession and to teachers throughout and students throughout the country. We didn't see you using all of this energy when that so-called teacher out on the quarantine, I believe at one of the primary schools there, she took a picture with a big gun in her hand in the classroom. We didn't hear from you about that because we weren't going to hear from you. It's not of any interest to you. How do you think when teachers and students see you behave the manner in which you behave as a minister of education? Look at what you do in Parliament. Look at your conduct in Parliament. Look at your conduct in the streets. Look at how you behave. And is that an example for our young people? Is that an example for students? You guys underpay teachers. You guys bully teachers. You guys threaten teachers and all manner of things. But yet you want to sit there or wherever you're sitting or whatever you're doing to talk about what? Okay, let's get back now. So here's what she has admitted. She is saying, and I quote, "I would wager that the president, meaning Irfaan Ali, doesn't even know his mother is volunteering here as him and I never spoke." So now all of a sudden we're hearing that Irfaan Ali's mother, we never heard of this before. They never told you guys that there's a lecturer at UG who is also part of this and is being paid, I believe. And that lecturer is attached to her Ministry of Education and is also attached to this new group or this new board or whatever it is, unit that she formed, according to her, at CPCE. And that the Irfaan Ali's mother is going to play a role, according to her, an important role, because these things never happened before. And so they're not, this is how dotish Priya is, that she is not concerned about the optics. No explanation to members of the public or members of the teaching profession or nothing. She just decided that she's going to handpick a couple of people, Ali, Passad, this other, and you should see the names, mind you, right? With, I believe, one Caucasian woman. And so she decided to put her friends and cronies there. Her friends and cronies. Or her friends and cronies. That's what she decided to put. Her friends and cronies. So now she is admitting that one, yes, Irfaan Ali's mother is part of it. And two, it is voluntary. And three, that she is a great educator. She's a great educator. That's what this is all about. But it's ironic that she has admitted that Irfaan Ali doesn't know about his mother's position. Whether she is being paid or not is irrelevant. And I hope, because Priya has this track record of straying from the truth. Priya has this track record of straying from the truth. So you're going to take Irfaan Ali's mother, put her in a position, and you want to tell us, Priya, that Irfaan Ali doesn't even know. So how the heck are you running a country? What is this, a cake shop? That you guys just wake up one morning off the couch, probably getting over from some hangover or something. I don't know, man, because people can get hangover from something. And then just make these decisions and feel that these decisions are in the best interest of the country, and that you want to run this thing through before 2025 to prove what point? Teachers have never been so unhappy under the PPP. Again, they are unhappy. Remember, under the PPP, and even when you, prior to 2015, were the minister of, when you were the Minister of Education, there were hundreds of teachers, and even prior to you being there, hundreds of teachers were leaving Guyana, probably close to a couple thousands of teachers leaving Guyana to other parts of the world, whether the US, whether Botswana, wherever. They were leaving because you guys have no respect for teachers. You guys are a bunch of disgrace, bringing every sector flat to the ground. Y'all love to throw tantrums, behave like some big bad woman that you can abuse out, just like you went in the ambassador's residence. You didn't tell your people them that I spoke about that too, and that you are banned from going to the ambassador's residence. I'm not sure if you can, I don't see you in this part of the world in the US, so I don't know whether you can travel to the US or not. I don't know. I don't know whether they categorize you as having anchor babies and these things. I don't know. And I'm just not going to be discussing that here at all. But again, nothing of what she said in response to me basically bringing this to the forefront to say that Irfan Ali's mother, according to Priya, is a big and a great educator, is playing a big role at CPCE, the Cyril Potter College of Education, where those trainee teachers have been complaining for years, especially under the PPP regime, that they have been neglected. They have been treated badly, particularly under Priya's stewardship there as Minister of Education. She's going to go and she's going to abuse out. She's going to beat up in Parliament. She's going to bawl out RAPE, all manner of things, and our young people are watching. She's not addressing the violence in our school, the increased violence in our schools, and talk about what is it that she has in place to correct these things. She's not talking about that. She's not talking about a task force to address these issues. She's not commenting about that. But it looks as though she wants to kiss up the rear end of Irfan Ali by giving Irfan's mother, who's the only educator in Guyana, the only educator for that position, the only educator. And they want people to believe that. They want people to sit down and accept the crap coming from them. This is not to say that Mistress Ali, that is, Irfan Ali's mother, might not mean well. That's besides the point. This is not an attack on Mistress Ali. And if Mistress Ali, if you're watching, you would understand the position that I have taken. And assalamu alaikum to you, Mistress Ali. It is the optics. And this is something Dodo Head, Priya Manikchand, cannot comprehend. And I wonder which law school she went to. I'm just wondering what law school, what lawyer, how these people become lawyers. Just a dry? Just a dry, you could just, man, I should just walk in Guyana and say I'm a liar too. Just a dry? Anyways, enough of giving Priya her 15 minutes of fame. Enough of that. So the success story for today is the success story is the victory with the elections, the victory with the case. Which case? The victory with the case at the International Court concerning Venezuela and Guyana. Great job. And again, the coalition government headed by David Granger, ought to be credited for this, not Jack Deo, because Jack Deo and his boys wanted to sell Guyana out. I want to take you guys to for a few minutes to take a look at Al Jazeera did an interview with me and Carl Greenidge and a couple others about the same Venezuela issue many years ago, while Jack Deo was planning to sell out Guyana. patriotic Guyanese were out there fighting for Guyana. Not Jack Deere, though. So take a quick look at this because we want to carry that press conference right here, the leader of the opposition. Take a quick look at this here. It's the stream. Some of you may have saw it before, I don't know. May have seen it before, sorry. So let us see.
Hi, I'm Femi OK, and you're in the stream. Today, an oil discovery just off the coast of Guyana has reignited a territory dispute with Venezuela. What's happening in the Essequibo region? The territory dispute between Guyana and Venezuela, well, that goes back more than 100 years. Guyana is just towards the east of Venezuela. And sitting here, it used to be a Dutch colony, then it was a British colony. It's the only English-speaking country in the whole of South America. Next door, we have Venezuela, a former Spanish colony. So along here is the Essequibo region, and this line border here was decided back in 1899 by International Tribunal. And it was decided that all of this area here belonged to Guyana. Let's fast forward until a few months ago when ExxonMobil discovered oil just off the coast of Guyana. That was when President Maduro of Venezuela, well, he said it is time to take back our land. So this area here, the Essequibo region, going back to Venezuela, which left just one third of Guyana left for Guyana. Online, there was support for President Maduro's suggestion, and it was here, let's take back our country, our homeland. And then on the ground, protest in Guyana saying, hands off our oil. We're going to be joined by the Foreign Minister of Guyana in this conversation. And he says, no part of Guyana is going anywhere. That's the conversation. That's the backstory. Let's see what Malika Blau, our digital producer, has on her laptop.
Thanks, Femi. Well, most people are talking about the timing behind this renewed territorial dispute. And I say quote unquote dispute because not everyone believes it is one. So that's the question that we're asking our community, what they think is behind this renewed push. We want you to answer that question. And you can do that by tweeting us with hashtag AJStream.
My name is Mauricio Salvarezzi. I am a Brazilian blogger and I am on the stream.
Now, to help us break down this territory dispute, we have in Georgetown, Minister of Foreign Affairs in the Republic of Guyana, Carl Greenrich. From Caracas, the former Venezuelan ambassador to Guyana, Sadio Garavini. Also in Georgetown, Mark Anthony Benshop, he's a Guyanese activist. And Jesus Silva is a professor of international politics at the University of Central Venezuela. So gentlemen, welcome, good to have you here. So Mark, if I asked you to draw a map of Guyana, what would it look like?
It will look like the original map that we have that includes all of Guyana, 83,000 square miles, nothing belonging to any other country. And so that is going to be the map that I'm accustomed to. I've known this map since I was a little boy, and that is going to be the map all through eternity. None of Guyana is going anywhere.
Jesus, what would your map look like?
Well, I think that the map is according to the Venezuelan claim that this zone that we are asking for to be given back to our country must be given back to our country. And we're going to work on that solution within the framework of international law, as the government of Venezuela is doing right now. So we want no conflict, we want no confrontation. We want a peaceful solution and a legal solution with the aid of the international community.
Interesting. So, Sadio, back in the 1980s, you were the ambassador to Guyana, Venezuela's ambassador to Guyana. What do you make of the relationship between the two countries right now?
Well, the relation with the two countries, we are condemned in a certain sense, in a good sense of being neighbors for the eternity. So we have to find a way, the best way to solve our problems amicably. And the Geneva Agreement in 1966, which is the framework, the only juridical framework that we have to solve the conversation, the controversy, is says exactly what we have to do about it, and that we have to follow the lines of the Geneva Agreement.
So let me just make sure that I understand this, and also for the benefit of our international community, Sadia. So that Geneva Agreement was the idea was that Venezuela was not happy with what was decided back in 1899. They wanted to go back to arbitration, and they wanted to go back with the UN. And the UN says, well, both you parties, Venezuela, Caracas, and also Guyana, you have to get together and talk about it. And that conversation, that didn't really happen, did it, Sadio?
No, there was a lot of discussion. The
Yeah.
problem, there are two interpretations of the Geneva Agreement.
Right.
And I would say, I think that is the most important thing that we have to talk about, maybe, because the Geneva Agreement expressly disposed in its preamble that the matter must be resolved in a manner acceptable to both parties.
Right, Sadio, I'm going to ask you just to give a pause for a moment, because a lot of us are learning about this as we go along. So I don't want to dig deep into the Geneva Agreement. I want to make it a nice broad conversation so all of our online community can join in as well. Malika, where do you want to take us?
I want to take us actually back in history just a little bit, but very interestingly.
Yeah.
This is Juan, who's tweeting us about his memories. He said, I remember this topic being a question in elementary school back in Venezuela. And he goes on to say, given the maps were drawn, it was always brushed off as, quote unquote, too complicated, or it's basically not ours anymore. And he goes on one more time to say, however, I have those memories of going to school back home. It was almost an accepted fact that Guyana was not part of Venezuela. So that's a little bit back in history. Minister, I want to go to you now for fast forwarding us a little bit. Are tensions on the ground, what are they like? Are there tensions between the two countries right now?
Well, Monica, there are, of course, tensions arising from statements being made by Venezuelan groups, by the Venezuelan president, by the Venezuelan minister. As regards the issue over which there is a controversy, let me just make a couple of points clear to you. That Savio is right when he speaks about the significance of the Geneva Agreement, which was signed in 1966. But the Geneva Agreement at no point addresses the changing of the borders between the two countries. The border was freely negotiated in 1899. It was subsequently delineated and marked.
So, Minister, what we're interested in as an international community, because remember, this is an international story as well as a domestic one for you, is what is the relationship like right now, regardless of the Geneva Agreement, right now, with your next door neighbor? What is that like?
I've just explained that relationship. Yeah. There's a relationship of tension right now,
yes,
arising from various statements being made about, obviously, if you wake up a morning and you find that either your house is being claimed or your neighbor is claiming that the land that you have known, where you have never seen any Venezuelans living, is suddenly to be the property of Venezuela, then obviously there will be tensions between the two countries. There are outside the border issues. There are normally no great tensions of significance. The tensions that...
See, Mark, that seems a lot more than tension. The idea that you could wake up and your house doesn't belong to you, is that a little extreme? Or is that really happening?
Well, you have a situation in which on May the 26th, Guyana's Independence Day, the Venezuelan president issued a proclamation laying claim to all of Guyana's exclusive economic zone. But that is really the end of the latest saga in a longer story in which in 1966, immediately prior to Guyana's independence, the government of Venezuela at the time, in our view, seeking to prevent Guyana's independence, was demanding that an international treaty which established the borders be revisited.
All right, Minister, let me play a little bit of your president. This is President David Granger. Yeah, go ahead, Jesus. I want to bring us up to date, because there are certain dates here for us as an international community. We're really concerned about what's going to happen next, not what happened before. But go ahead.
The point is that, unfortunately, the Guyanese minister is forgetting a big part of the story. There is a statement by the Guyanese president saying that Venezuela is somehow a monkey on his back.
See, Jesus,
which is
you must
very
have,
offensive.
Jesus, you must have read my mind. Jesus, hold tight for a moment. Hold tight for a moment. You must have read my mind because I was about to play that when you said, "Can I say something?" So let me actually play that. This is July of this year. This is the president of Guyana, and he was talking about the pressure that he's feeling from Venezuela, and he was speaking at CARICOM, the Caribbean Community meeting. Have a listen to this.
Guyana, even as it approaches the 50th anniversary of its independence next year, hand in hand with its sister Barbados, is still carrying a monkey on its back. That monkey is the unbearable burden of an oppressive and obnoxious claim on our land and sea space. CARICOM has been a source of solace and steadfast support for Guyana's territorial integrity and sovereignty over the years. We never needed that support more than now.
All right, so that's what Jesus was summarizing, and I think you should really have heard that sort of word by word as you did here. Right. Malika, where do you want to take us?
Well, you heard what he had to say. This is what the citizens have to say. This is Derwayne, who tweeted to the stream. I am from Guyana, and first let me say there is no dispute. It is a claim or a controversy, but the issue was settled decades ago. So that's one point of view, but I want to give you the sense of how people are talking about this in Venezuela. So the stream rounded up a bunch of hashtags that people are using to discuss this. Here you have some of the top ones, and these all have tens of thousands of mentions in just the past 30 days. This last one is the one, though, that I want you to look at. The claim for Essequibo is just. And that is what people are saying. This is the one they're using the most. So, Sadio, you see this conversation happening. Has this united Venezuelans who might have been previously not united?
No, we are united in the claim, but I would say, and I insist, that the solution is through the Geneva Agreement, and where it says that we have to look for a practical solution to the matter. And that is precisely the problem. It is the validity or invalidity of the award of 1899. That is what the Guyanese government says. It is about the Geneva Agreement. It's precisely, instead they should, the Guyanese government should say what it means.
All right, so Sadio, how would you propose, Sadio?
Practical solution.
How would you propose?
The importance in the word practical solution.
All right, so let me show you.
That means it's a negotiated solution.
All right, so Sadio, let me show you something. This is, I don't really need to show you, I'm going to show our international community this. This is President Maduro's plan for how to go forward with this controversy, territorial dispute, however you want to describe it. Have a look at what he spoke about back in May. So there was going to be a maritime defense zone. There was going to be an Essequibo rescue office. There were going to be a further 200,000 Venezuelan ID cards issued to Guyanese people, and also asked for some UN assistance. And that is really what you were talking about here in terms of arbitration. Mark, is any of that appealing to you as somebody from Guyana?
Well, I think it's what Maduro is saying. It's not appealing to most Guyanese, and I think the time has come that we resolve this matter peacefully, or one way or the other. Guyana belongs to us, and we all know this. I think the Venezuelans know that. The former ambassador knows it. Professor knows that. I think they're just dilly-dallying on the issue. President Maduro is basically diverting attention from the massive economical problems they have in Venezuela currently, food shortages throughout the country. He has an election coming up in December, and this is just basically to prop him up so that he can win the elections. My desire is that Maduro is voted out of office and we have a much more sane president that can resolve this matter and allow Guyana to breathe again.
Well, Femi, you mentioned as part of the decree, one of the things that President Maduro mentioned was the ID cards, and that's what people are picking up on. This is a tweet. Kwesi writes on Twitter, just what I always wanted, Venezuelan citizenship. I'm going to guess he's doing that tongue-in-cheek. But I want you all to hear this video comment. Jesus, I'll direct it to you. And she picks up on that same idea. This is Irene.
If we look at the historical documentation, it would be very difficult to prove that this territory still belongs to Venezuela. But obviously, because there's this new discovery, all of a sudden, the whole government is focused on this particular area. What I find most curious, however, is that Venezuela is actually considering giving Venezuelan IDs to over 200,000 people living in this territory. And then we'll see what happens then.
So, Jesus, she mentioned the IDs. Practically, how would this work? And what language would people in the region need to speak? Because presumably they don't speak Spanish right now.
The possibility of granting ID cards to Guyanese citizens is an evidence that the Venezuelan government does not want a military conflict against Guyana, that the Venezuelan government is willing to solve this issue within the framework of international law. But I will not allow, as a lawyer, the people to be misled. The problem is that the current government in Guyana has a political position, a rightist position, an anti-communist position, as we have just heard from the professor from Guyana, that he wants Maduro to be voted out of his country. We have no desire to interfere in political affairs of Guyana, but our friends from Guyana, or at least these partakers, these members of the program today, the show, are somehow expressing and letting all out, the opinions against our government.
Jesus,
the point is that they are boosting the conflict, and they want to ExxonMobil to intervene in the conflict, also the British government to intervene in the conflict, and also the U.S. government to intervene in the conflict. It seems that in the dreams of the Guyanese president, there is an intention to create a military confrontation, which is very irresponsible and very dangerous from this man that he says he's representing the interests of the Guyanese people very responsibly. He is not being a responsible leader when he wants to create a conflict with Venezuela just as a part of a political agenda.
Jesus, just take a pause. Go ahead, Mark.
I can say that it's quite the opposite, because President Maduro has been displaying quite the very thing that he's accusing our government of doing. President Granger has said that he wants this matter to be resolved peacefully, diplomatically, and let's all move on. It is President Maduro who has said then that the president of Guyana is not in control, he's not this. I mean, he's the one who's been interfering in our domestic political
is supplying oil every day.
The other stuff, we are supplying rice.
Because Venezuela is giving oil to your country. You should be grateful for that.
And
but instead, you're attacking my country, and you somehow want to create this conflict that never existed before when leftist governments were in control of Guyana.
Just give a moment so we can actually have a little bit of a back and forth. Hold tight for a moment. Yes, Mark, go ahead.
We are neighbors. We should live as neighbors too, peacefully. We supply tons upon tons of rice to you guys. Think about what if we don't give Venezuela rice. What is going to happen to you guys, Professor? Think about if you have a sane president who understands diplomacy and can have this matter resolved, and all of us can breathe again. Think of what the possibility exists if you have a government that focuses on the people of Venezuela and that can avoid the millions of people living in starvation right now in Venezuela. Unemployment on the rise. Come on.
All right, so gentlemen, Mark and Jesus, we actually have two diplomats in this conversation. So let's go to our two diplomats here and just see where they want to take us. Minister, you hear the back and forth. I imagine that is pretty representative of what's happening on the ground for Venezuela, what's happening on the ground for Guyana. But you're a foreign minister. How do you see this situation resolving itself? Will it?
Femi, first of all, let me say to you that the comments made by former ambassador as regards the Geneva Agreement are quite correct. I agree with him on practically everything he said.
Apart from what?
Not apart from anything. I'm saying I agree with what the ambassador said so far as regards the facts, namely that an agreement was signed in 1899. Venezuela is a party to that, and that in 1966 we agreed.
So, Minister, I want to go forward. We don't have so much time. We've covered that ground already. How do you see the way forward? Because we have a time crunch, Minister. So take us forward. Because I don't want to keep repeating those two dates. I want to go forward. How do we get out of this situation? How do you get out of this situation?
May I explain to you?
Please do.
I'm trying to explain to you that the significance, the solution to the problem, the solution to the issue or to the controversy, as the ambassador indicated, has to be around the 1966 agreement, because the agreement is the thing that says to these two parties, there is a controversy over the arbitration award, the arbitral award, whether it is actually null and void.
So, Minister, let me ask you this briefly, because I only have a little bit of time here, and I know this is a much longer debate, so I apologize for pushing you a little bit. So here's the thing. So this is a framework that they set up for the UN for arbitration. Is Guyana ready to come?
Arbitration for a number of, it offers a number of options.
Is Guyana ready to come to the table to talk about that? Are you ready to negotiate anything?
I'm trying to explain something to you.
I only have a set amount of time, Mr. Minister, so please help us out with the time. I have to push you, and I'm going to go to the community next. So is Guyana ready to have that conversation?
Well, a conversation has always been going on. Guyana has always been a party to the conversations associated with the Geneva Agreement. If I don't explain what the ambassador had highlighted and which the two of us agree on, then an answer, that the type of answer you're seeking is not going to help you. So I will leave it there.
All right, I understand, and I apologize for the shortness of this conversation. Let me go to Malika. Malika.
Well, this is another perspective from Guyana. This is actually a former ambassador to Venezuela from Guyana. This is Odin Ishmael. Sadio, I'll direct this to you. He says Venezuela has not attempted to prove its case before an international court. Guyana suggested the issue should be presented to the International Court of Justice, but he says Venezuela refuses. Sadio?
Yes, because, I mean, there are many, in the Geneva Agreement, there are different means to solve the problem. And our position is that the Geneva Agreement, the objective of the Geneva Agreement is not the validity or invalidity of the 1819 award, because if Guyana wanted to go to the International Court of Justice for the validity or invalidity of the 1899 award, they should have not signed the Geneva Agreement in 1966. They only had to ask to go to the Geneva, to the International
Sadio,
Court of Justice.
What do you think might happen? This was still a conversation. This was still a controversy when you were ambassador to Guyana for Venezuela. This was back in the 1980s. What do you think might happen now?
What will happen now?
Yeah.
Well, as the minister said, it's a complicated affair to say in a few minutes. But I will say, if there is no agreement between the two parties, they have to refer the case to the Secretary General of the United Nations, who has to decide which mean of a peaceful solution of controversy has to be used inside the Geneva Agreement. Those means of solution, of peaceful solution, are in the Article 33 of the Charter of the United Nations. So if there is no agreement between the two parties, they have to refer to the Secretary General of the United Nations.
Mark?
We want a peaceful agreement, a conclusion of this matter. I don't think Venezuela president wants that. They've been talking about war. There have been incursion of our borders, where Venezuelan soldiers are just hopping over our borders and thinking that Guyana is just a small country in terms of population and they could ride all over us. It is not going to happen. I am hoping that our government will take a stronger measure against Venezuela and let this matter be resolved. We have the international community on our side. We have CARICOM on our side. Everyone is on our side. The law is on our side. One thing quickly that I'm totally against, and I feel as an activist that it's a disrespect of our people and our sovereignty for the president of Venezuela or the government of Venezuela to say that they're going to issue ID cards to our nationals in Essequibo. That is a treasonous act. And if I have my way, I will charge the president of Venezuela with treason.
All right. So, Jesus is shaking his head. Do you want to know what's behind that shake of his head? Of course you do. The only place to find that out, Jesus will be telling us that in our post show. Jesus, hold tight for a moment. We're at the end of the show. I don't want to crash you into the news. Stream.aljazeera.com. We're taking Jesus, Mark, Sadio, and also the Minister for Foreign Affairs for Guyana or coming to our post show at stream.aljazeera.com. Thank you so much to the guests. On the next AJ Stream, well, US President Barack Obama described his country's criminal justice system as broken, and he's on a mission to fix it. So what will it take to make that happen? We'll explore that on the next AJ Stream. In the meantime, see you online, stream.aljazeera.com. Thanks for watching.
That was then, right? That was then. Hope you enjoyed that little exchange between myself and that professor, that lawyer. I don't know what he's up to these days, whether Maduro has him in some prison, because, you know, Maduro is just like Jack Deo and Irfan. They love to lock folks up. I'm not sure if that lawyer still holds the same views that he does or that he did back then. Neither am I saying that I'll be happy if I hear that he's in the lockups. No, if he is in the lockups, I would just more than happy to I'll just more than be happy to advocate for his release. But I don't know where he is or what he's up to. That was kind of like a heated debate or exchange, so to speak, that Maduro wanted to issue ID cards to the people of Essequibo, wanted to issue Venezuelan ID cards to the people of Essequibo. We'll be right back. Yes, we are monitoring. Hopefully, we'll head over to the Congress place. I believe that's where the press conference will be held. We want to be able to bring that to you guys. Should be a busy morning for us. Should be a busy morning. Like I said, we want to give you guys that opportunity to hear other views as well. And I'm hoping that the opposition leader, that they will address the issue with the conclusion there of that court matter. Sorry about that. You know, oftentimes the delay with these press conferences and so forth, the delay with the press conferences. Notice a lot of people are saying not a blade of grass. It's good to be patriotic. Under the circumstances, I can just imagine how you guys are feeling with regards to an unpatriotic, quote unquote, government in Guyana right now. A very unpatriotic government in Guyana right now. But not because we have an unpatriotic government. Installed government means that we have to just be unpatriotic as well. No, we've just got to continue, doing what we're doing and to ensure. Sorry about that. We're still trying to, we're not sure what's happening, but we want to get on to the AFC's press conference. I'm sorry, the APNU AFC's. I don't know. There's not that they should really remove that APNU AFC stuff, because Ramjatan, I think they removed themselves from the coalition altogether. We will be heading over shortly to that press conference. We want to hear what the leader of the opposition has to say. And again, I hope he has qualified people to deal with the border issue. And I really do mean qualified people to deal with the border issue, to address. We will, if you can, as you continue to share the link, we will take you over now to the leader of the opposition's press conference. We want you guys to hear everything that's happening.
Comply with local and international building safety and health codes. Today, we wish to add another Guyanese households continue to live as tenants. Even as our policies facilitate greater home ownership, a coalition government will address the social and financial hardships of families who rent. Rent constitutes a major portion of low-income family budget, as high as 40 to 50% on average. As the conventional wisdom goes, the rent eats first. In many households, rent costs severely cut into the cash remaining to purchase food, pay utilities, and afford other necessities. A coalition government will therefore provide support to ensure rent payments do not trap families in poverty. We will therefore introduce a rent assistance scheme. Its design and operation will guarantee housing security for tenants, fair return on investment for landlords, and incentives to ensure that the renting housing stock is regularly maintained and renovated. We also envisage such a scheme as a structured and effective way to help ease the current high cost of living. Such a scheme, along with our earlier proposed relief on electricity and water payments for low-income households, can together serve both for poverty alleviation and cost of living relief. Several countries have such programs from which we can adopt best practices and avoid pitfalls. This is what we mean when we say that we will develop people-centered programs that bring genuine relief to our people. It should be obvious to all that the present government is visionless. And what Guyana needs is a government with big plans and a big vision, and one which puts people first. We feel the frustrations, weariness, and disappointment of the Guyanese people. We believe we can make Guyana one of the best countries to live in.
And the other half of the statement will be read by Mr. Elson Law.
Thank you, Shalita. A coalition government will maximize the country's revenues from its oil resources. The exposures in the Stabroek news of the audit of ExxonMobil Guyana from 1999 to 2017 should alarm expenses could be disputed by the Guyana government, as they were not allowable or did not have sufficient supporting documentation. 2, the PPP government, true to form, kept citizens in the dark on the progress of the audit. And 3, the PPP government is showing a marked lack of urgency to complete the audit cycle and to engage ExxonMobil in recovering all disallowed expenses, even though the first audit report was submitted in March of 2021. That is, over 2 years ago. Government must, of necessity, protect the interests of the people of Guyana. Unfortunately, this is not the case at present. The record will show that it was the APNU-AFC government which hired the UK firm IHS Markit to undertake this inaugural audit of all pre-contract costs and all exploration and development costs up to the 1st December 2017. In contrast, the PPP has decided to play games with the country's oil revenues. For perspective, Guyanese should note that the questionable US $214 million or Guyana $46 billion is close to 6% of the total 2023 budget. But it is bigger than the 2023 budget for the Ministry of Human Services by 6 billion Guyana dollars, bigger than the budget for the Ministry of Agriculture by about $13 billion, and bigger than the budget for the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport by $39 billion. Despite the magnitude of the sums involved, the government's attitude reeks of collusion, negligence, and recklessness. We must therefore be fearful with regards to the second audit being conducted by VHE Consulting for the period 2018 to 2020, which involves the sum of US $7.3 billion. That is a sum over 4 times larger than the first audit. Let us recall that our press conference on 6 December 2022, we reminded the nation that the PPP agreed to conduct this second audit only after persistent public pressure. Furthermore, we had insisted that the audits of oil receipts must be based on an assessment, and I quote, an assessment of reasonable and competitive prices. That's what's in the PSA. If properly done, we expect the second audit to reveal greater amounts of contestable expenditures. The revelations in the first audit justify our calls for the government to walk the talk in building local capacity to effectively audit and monitor the operations of ExxonMobil Guyana. And secondly, on ensuring that all Guyanese fully and fairly benefit from the proceeds of oil. We reiterate those calls today. Meanwhile, Guyanese must demand that the PPP release all the audit reports and recover all invalid expenses. The PPP's cavalier attitude in the management of the country's national patrimony will cost Guyana tens of millions of dollars, of billions of dollars. This disaster must not be allowed to persist. Today, however, we wish to state a broader position. We believe matters have reached a point in the development of our oil sector where the country must now take stock, review its experiences, and recalibrate its oil development strategy. Going forward, Guyana must urgently exercise intelligence and foresight to maximize the country's oil revenues under the current Exxon PSA, in parallel with efforts to ensure the people of Guyana obtain the maximum benefit that we can get. We therefore find Bharat Jagdeo's reported statement that the PPPC government plans to fast-track the oil industry for a minimum of 15 years as reckless, wild, and a recipe for massive loss and leakages of revenue that is needed for the development of the people of Guyana. Instead, we propose that Guyana needs to develop a strategy to phase the development of new projects in the Stabroek Block in a manner that allows us to increase our takings through higher profit oil also. At the moment, the 50-50 split gets Guyana only 12.5% of our revenues, a percentage that seems unlikely to budge under the ongoing oil rush. With 5 FPSOs already in operation or already approved, the country is now well positioned to seek a larger cut of the pie. In terms of numbers, the 25% profit oil must be allowed to increase so that the 50-50 split would earn Guyana increasingly more than 12.5%. Therefore, the government must invite Exxon to the table to work out a balance between expenditures and revenues that will allow Guyana's current share of profit oil to gradually and quickly rise from 12.5%. At these talks, the government must rely on expert technical advice to arrive at best fit decisions based on ESSO's cost recovery statements and its expenditure